วัสดีค่ะ Good evening and welcome to TMA Top Talk, which is organized by Corporate Performance Management Group of TMA. I am Wanvira, the CEO, and I will be your host tonight. First of all, I would like to express our most sincere appreciation to Her Excellency Kanjana Patrashok, the Thai ambassador to Sweden, and the team at the Royal Thai Embassy in Stockholm for helping us bring Mr. Jowan Österlund, the founder and CEO of Biohacks International, to our Thai audience today. Literally speaking, Jowan is getting under people's skin. He's a body piercer turned biotech entrepreneur and now is leading commercial biohacking in Sweden. Now, what is biohacking actually, and what is Jowan is doing? Well, I believe we are all familiar with the Internet of Things, or IoT, that is the internet connection by the Internet of computing devices embedded in everyday objects, and I bring them to connect and communicate. Now, this is where Jowan conveniently comes in. With the vision of seamless interaction between humans and technology, he is shifting us from the IoTs to what he has dubbed the Internet of Us, where humans easily speak the language of machines in a hyper-connected world. Let's learn more from Jowan himself. I can just tell that it's going to be a very exciting and inspiring talk. And if you have any question, please feel free to send them in at any time. But I believe we will save the question, for at the end of the talk. Jowan, could you please start your talk with us, please?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
You're welcome.
I haven't been in Thailand for ages, so I'd be aching to come back if it wasn't for Corona, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the entire thing about biohacking and how I came to start doing this. I mean, I've been into self-expression and individuality my entire life by allowing people to decide of their own looks, decide what they want to do, if they want to pierce their ear, or if they want a tiny diamond in their face, or tattoos gotten on, or tattoos removed. That mixed with a profound interest in one of the things we're going to start seeing in the beginning of the presentation, and one of the kind of sci-fi technology pieces that got me inspired from a very early age was John Mnemonic, and the fact that you can alter and change your body into looking pretty much any way you'd want, and there's all this neat and awesome technology on the outside. How about we start using it to enhance not only our looks but also our abilities. I mean, I, for one, I guess it's one of the reasons as well, not the only reasons, obviously, but I forget stuff, and I've never enjoyed the fact that I have to check my gym card, my this card, my wallet, my keys, and I'm a bit forgetful. And I don't know how many times I have to change login and passwords and reset passwords all over the internet and all of that. So this entire integrating technology to enhance and allow me to think of other things instead has always come very, very close to heart. Should I play, or am I on video, or is it presentation mode?
Shall we start with the video?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know which camera's on me, or if I'm in two cameras, so I can see the presentation and the video, or.
Yeah, you can just start the sharing.
Okay, sweet.
Okay.
I'm sharing my big screen, correct?
Yeah.
This is basically what I imagined everything to be like when I did my first implant. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but this is the internet in 2021. Didn't quite turn out like this, but let's see. I'll change it. Okay, can we change the slide?
You can change it to slideshow.
Okay, thank you. Come on, change. Let's see. It's there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the zoom controls are in the way of the change controls on the presentation. Anyway, that's basically how I envisioned things to be right now. And I was absolutely astonished by the fact that they weren't. And when I did my first implant some 8 years ago, I imagined, you know, bells and whistles and kind of a Johnny mnemonic situation, but all I got was basically a beep. However, that did give me the foundation for something else. I mean, realizing that I had put something into my body that could communicate with my phone, and due to the fact that it could communicate with my phone, could also communicate with any other type of equipment that spoke the same language. So having that kind of first interaction with myself opened up an entire world of possibilities. So what we started doing is we started looking for every single piece of equipment, every piece of service that offered NFC. And luckily in Sweden, basically the entire integrated payment infrastructure has NFC. So it's regulated that every point of retail in Sweden should be able to access or accept NFC payment, which is completely amazing. So from office access, public access, different security accesses to actual payment, this is the compiling and the full integration of what we can do in everyday life. And this is with a single piece of, I don't know what people like to call it, but I mean, this is a piece of enhancement that allows you to aggregate the entire Internet of you and set the preferences for the Internet of us. And when I say Internet of me, Internet of you, is if you take all the pieces that you have that aren't really connected, like to the internet, like your home door, the direct access to your computer, your wine cellar, your bicycle lock, your car key, those are all kind of the nodes around you in everyday life that creates your internet. So now if you take that internet and kind of call that a node, and everyone else around you is a node, when you start deciding that you communicate and share different types of information and data and start doing things together, that's kind of what creates the internet of us. Now, if every one of us is a container of sorts, a node that carries information and preferences information and owns and dictates what happens to that information, you also become a silo of value. Now, if you preference your data and you own your data, which you can do with this when it becomes a token of identity, um, we're looking at an identity paradigm shift that is actually starting to happen. And if you look at the things like the smaller everything, everyday things that you can do with this tiny implant. I mean, that is the login to my computer. I have my security preferences. I have my home door. I can't really start my car yet, but next car, definitely. So my house, my transportation, the hospitality. So basically all the small things everywhere in my life, I can handle and access and preference with this tiny embedded piece of electronic. Now, if I define this as my digital identity and I'm allowed to preference what happens to that data, when, how, if, and why, we start kind of shaping a sovereignty around the immutable identity. Now, if you have immutable identity, there's literally nothing you can't do. And the improvement and the optimization of everything would save hundreds and hundreds of billions of euros every year, which is extremely interesting. But I'm going to wait with playing this one. So if you're sensitive, you might want to look away. I'm doing it pretty slowly, so it's not that bad. But getting into the kind of the ethics and the problems around the non-existence of regulation when you have an immutable identity embedded in yourself, it's kind of a two-edged sword. I mean, the possibilities, of course, are amazing because you would just look at the congestion in, in transport and logistics in London and lunchtime. Or in Bangkok, in Singapore, in Jakarta, in Hong Kong, in Tokyo, so any large capital city in the world. If we take every process, every interaction per person, for them to pick up a card, identify themselves or authenticate their them being allowed to go on a trip, put it back. Maybe it's the wrong card. Maybe it's an invalid card. Maybe they lost it or dropped it or someone stole it. Now, taking all of that into account, every one person and the time it takes for them to get anywhere, or not to get anywhere, actually get on the piece of equipment to take them anywhere. We're looking at orders of magnitude cheaper, more efficient, and more secure while using a microchip implant. That alone, I mean, is saving hundreds of thousands of hours in every city, basically every day. So, I mean, the numbers of in optimization models you're looking at is quite staggering. So, out of sustainability, efficiency, and it kind of makes sense to do everything with it. But here, of course, comes the dilemma. When there's no regulation around all of the data and all of the derivatives from your digital identity, if they're not naturally and by default owned and preferenced by you as an individual, and that isn't a basic human right, we're walking into pretty dangerous scenery, or as a scenario that's probably gonna end up pretty bad. So, and that's kind of where I'd want to see most of the conversations evolve around. I mean, the ethics around it. I mean, it is definitely unparalleled when it comes to security, convenience, sustainability, efficiency, and it is the optimal digital way because there's nothing that can measure itself with it. So I don't know. Do you wanna come in and create some dynamics around this, because that's basically my introduction of the entire um, the entire thing. If you want, I can show you guys exactly what it looks like when you get it. I don't know if people don't want to see it. I guess they should look away. So this is a friend of mine getting an implant, and it shows exactly how fast it can be and how easy it is. I'm talking Swedish, so I'll just remove the sound and I'll do some narrating instead. So this is just, you disinfect the skin and you manipulate the tissue a little bit. One, so you wanna annoy and irritate, and this is the same. So you're just poking with a piece of plastic to create some a slight pinching sensation, and look away if you're sensitive. That's done. You kind of pop it in. That's it. There's a tiny band-aid, and he's done. And he's programmed with a LinkedIn profile. So whenever he wants to share his contact, that's what it is. So, I mean, all of these things are really super simple and super efficient. And I mean, the user experience is beyond, because I can feel myself. I'm just, oh, when I can open my car, when I can start my car, imagine that. When I can board a flight, when I can utilize this as my passport or you know, credentials anywhere, that would just be beyond. And I'm hoping that's kind of where we're going, but not until we have, you know, a decent set of regulatory and legislative framework to actually start protecting our data and our individual sovereignty over this data and basically everything that derives from our digital identity. Because if we owned it and we preferenced how we shared it and sold it, that would essentially be, you know, citizen pay. And believe me, there are people willing to pay for it out there, a lot of money, and that's something we're working on right now. But the only thing that's slowing everything down is regulation and bureaucracy. I guess that's kind of it for an intro, at least.
My initial question is that are there infrastructures, you know, ready for this kind of technology already in Sweden, right?
Yeah, in all over the world.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you look at NFC as a payment, so you know, to contactless payment, you hold your card over the terminal. So instead of swiping it, you just hold it to it, and bloop, that's NFC. So the same technology. And when you're gonna ride the bus, or you're gonna enter into an office building or a gym, or you know, the library, or you're gonna enter into the airport, your passport holds the same type of chip in it. International driver's licenses. So basically, the technology has been around for ages and ages and ages. It's just a matter of, it's like Bluetooth. So Bluetooth is really old. So it's just a matter of it becoming more and more effective. It requires less energy to power it, and so on and so forth. It's the same thing with NFC. So it's been around since forever, not since forever, but you know, it's there. It's integrated in virtually everything.
But yeah, you also but you also mentioned the regulatory you know, aspect. So what's the
Where's the lack of it?
What's the
Where are we?
regulatory, set at the moment?
Yeah, so I mean, as much as I love bureaucracy and the regulatory and legislative kind of sector, I haven't been able to push more than the reaction. So the Parliament, the EU Commission paid for a study on like worker safety and worker privacy, because the media hyped. Well, they made their own quote out of one of my quotes, so they kind of fabricated a quote entirely and said, Biohacks International is getting ready to come to the UK and chip all of the employees. Well, international, big, huge company. And then, of course, media went ballistic and said, oh, how you can't force all the workers to get a chip. What if you don't want it? Blah, blah, blah. And that kind of sparked a EU, they funded this Irish Work Institute of Worker Security. So that's kind of the closest we've gotten to legislation or something happening in that realm. I mean, I've been trying to push the UN rather than try to push individual countries' legislation, because if you get something through with the United Nations, basically like every person should have the right to clean water. Yeah, everyone should have the right to a home. Yeah, definitely. And everyone should have the right to feel safe. Absolutely. Everyone should have the right to own their digital identity. Because the right to drink clean water doesn't necessarily mean that you have the right and the access to information, because access to information leads to education. Education means that you can start solving the socioeconomical situation that you're in, because that little gap between you are not owning and controlling your digital identity, that's the only that's the only thing that's in the way of every person having access to information. Because if you own your digital identity and you preference how you share it and how you sell it, because you can sell it or you can rent it out. You can allow a brand like Rolls-Royce or Rolex or Louis Vuitton or Coca-Cola, you can give them peer-to-peer access to you when you are saying, I would love a Coca-Cola right now, or Pepsi, or Fanta, or Red Bull. I called myself with brand placements. So I'll mention a bunch of brands in everyone, so it's not unfair. But you would basically give them the right to contact you, offering you stuff in real time when you wanted it, and that's the most valuable thing in the world for any brand. If they get to know that this client right here is dying for a cold beer or a cold Coca-Cola or a big bottle of water, and they're allowed, they would pay half the money they're making. They would pay half of the profit immediately in a heartbeat, because they would have instant ROI and 100% ROI on top of that, or 200%, because they're making the money back. Boom, and they made a new client. And virtually whoever that person is with is also going to buy something, and most likely something along the lines, so the kind of psychology around the data and what brands, how they want to communicate with you as a customer, it's exactly that. So if you get a peer-to-peer, they're going to buy it. Now you're going to make money. So you as a user is the one that's going to get the money for the data. That's not the fact now, because now you have to buy a really expensive piece of electronics, and someone else is going to capitalize off the data that you're creating with that very expensive piece of electronics that you bought. They didn't buy it, but they're taking all the data. However, when you kind of turn the tables like this, they're going to give you the piece of electronic because they will want to subscribe to your data, or in some way or form, they will want to get your data at any cost because their entire business models are based on it. Because if they're not getting your data, they're going bankrupt. They're going Kodak. So that's what we're seeing happening now. I mean, more telecom companies are pushing. Some really, really big players out there are pushing for sovereign data ownership because they know if we push for it, some of our competitors, they'll never do it. So that would put them in a whole new, a brand new, perfect upper hand. They'll get the position. They will be the fighters for sovereign identity. And they're essentially going to pay their clients. They're going to enable their clients to get paid just to have a phone. How cool is that? If you get paid when you have a phone,
right.
It could be $10 a week. That would change the lives for, 1 billion people. You don't even need an expensive piece of equipment. You need access to internet. You need basically, if you want to make even more, you'd need a GPS, perhaps a camera. I don't know, but that's like a $30 phone. And any telecom company in the world basically can give each client 2 of those phones. And without being worried, because they're going to make it back 100-fold the first year. So that's kind of why we're pushing towards sovereign identity on a blockchain stack, because on a blockchain, you can't fake it. One, you have a responsibility if you're the sovereign owner and you have immutability, because you will have to be able to prove for the other side as well that, yes, I am indeed this person. So the dynamics between, the public sector being involved with creating and actually shaping the regulatory framework around this, and the private sector being service providers and the users. It's a complex symbiosis, but it's definitely one that needs to happen because it's the solution of so much, and especially the sustainability part of it. Because if you look at electronics, for one, all the companies that are living off of you buying a phone every other year or every year or every 2 years. If telecom companies were the one giving you the phone because they want to subscribe to your data, there's no way that you're not going to be able to change the screen or change the batteries or change the camera, because they want that phone to last for 10 years, like a Nokia 3310, because it'd be awfully expensive if they had to give you a phone once a year. So the sustainability part also plays a big part into it. And then the time efficiency optimization models. The benefits are huge, but without the regulatory support, it's dangerous.
Is this, practice widespread in Sweden or even in European countries, or is it very unique to, I heard you already that, the technology has been here for quite some time already, but the practice of this biohacking, is it widespread yet in Europe or,
It was about to be. So I was starting to amass and get representatives all over Europe. I've been touring the world. I've been in 25, 30 countries, lecturing, having keynotes and workshops. So there's definitely a widespread interest in in trying everything out and kind of little by little, you know, start to get the feelers out there. And just at March last year, just before COVID kind of closed down the entire world, we were signing with a pretty big investor, and we were opening several chapters in Europe. About 2 weeks before before signing with that investor and actually realizing all of this, COVID came and locked down the entire world. So that kind of put me back to ground zero. But the interest is definitely there. And there is a widespread interest and a curiosity about it in both the private sector, the public sector, as well as the community part, because it's definitely growing a lot. Like Japan, I have an incredible amount of followers and interest from Japan. And I've never been to Japan. South Korea, the same. Thailand is fairly, the curiosity is definitely there. But I haven't done as many implants because I was there 2 to 3 years ago. I had a keynote, and yeah, I'll definitely go back because they were interested, but you know, slightly apprehensive but curious.
Yeah. Is it, you know, subject to local FDA approval also?
I'm not for like FDA, I'd say what it needs is a local.
Yeah, local like authority, you know, approval, something like that, because I believe
absolutely.
That, in each country they have different law and regulation.
So I'd say health and safety.
Yeah,
you follow your local health and safety regulation and standards. So if I mean, you can equate it to anywhere you would be allowed to get a vaccine or a piercing. They would have certain, you know, clean room and hygienic standards. They would have the sufficient knowledge in cross-contamination and bloodborne pathogens, infection control, and so on and so forth. So yeah, definitely. I mean, you're putting something into someone's body. It needs to be regulated material. It needs to, whoever performs the procedure needs to be, you know, knowledgeable. He needs to know what if, you know, all the aspects A to C. So we're primarily targeting nurses and people with a background in some sort of hygienic work background.
Right. You know, concerning the ongoing pandemic, you know, COVID-19 at the moment, do you think this microchip technology can help cope with the pandemic, or, you know, help with the economic recovery in some way?
Absolutely. I mean, just removing paper, just removing all the disconnected tokens of identity. If you look at plastic key fobs that are changing hands, you look at money that are changing hands, you look at pieces of paper that are touched by pens that are being signed manually. So all of this exchange, instead of having something, you know, no touch, no exchange of things, it would make, there's literally no comparing. I mean, it would be by orders of magnitude 100,000 times more efficient and more safe, because you could do most of the things. You can do voting, controlled voting over blockchain from home. I mean, you can do retail shopping. You can do anything from home. I mean, what we want, you don't want to remove the human aspect out of everything, because there's a tremendous cost of people not being able to be close to their everyday life, the social part, and so on and so forth. But in a strictly practical sense, yes, absolutely. But so that's kind of when I stopped doing the implants, when COVID hit, because I started putting my my efforts into a patch instead. So I designed a wearable patch that you can have on for whatever, 3 weeks. It's like an extra skin, but it's packed with sensors and thermometry and pulse and a government EID, so you can use it for payment and identification and whatever. Because that would also give you that layer of an e-identity that's kind of attached to you without it being, you know, kind of invasive. Because I know for a fact that not even remotely everyone would like to get an implant. Let's say a third of the population would say, oh, well, yeah, after having a considerable amount of thought about it, they would said yes. 30% over the board everywhere in the world after having 1 year of thinking. If you give them a patch that works exactly the same way, that takes away all the need for paper, for plastic cards, for disconnected tokens of identity, for this and that, and it gives you the ability to preference and sell and trade your data and all of, you know, whatever we have come up with. At least 30% would definitely get an implant. But now with COVID and everything, you know, the amount of social experimenting and, you know, pushing some borders, I wouldn't want to see the implant being used in such a fashion at all whatsoever. So I stopped doing it fully. So after the first government contacted me and said, what about we do a track and trace thing with your implants? And I had to decline because that would move so far from the core values and the ethics of what we actually have in biohacks. So I stopped everything with implants, stopped the designing of the next generation and everything. So all we have to offer now is basically a wearable patch I can sit on for a couple of weeks. If you take it off, it stops working. It can be loaded with government EID, so online digital identity and whatnot. And whenever I get a UN approval that the ownership of your digital identity should be a basic human right, I can start doing implants again.
Yeah, you know, just
Because
now there are a number of questions from the audience, you know, about the security or privacy, you know, of this information.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of the personal information. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So if you see, if you silo and compartmentalize all the information, and one, you never have all the information on the implant itself. So it's not like a flash drive. Mm-hmm. Rather, it's a kind of a biomorphological key that gives you access or gives you permission to do certain things, and the data from whatever process or interaction definitely ends up somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So you can still you silo and compartmentalize everything, and you never send any one full set of information one way, because mm-hmm. you always split it. Mm-hmm. So when splitting something, a single piece of data will always go 3 ways, and it will be random where they end up depending on the biosignature and the timestamp. So it's what we're going with is a multi-blockchain kind of approach. Okay. So it would never be in a single place at any one time. Mm-hmm. And if you saw the data and it's not you that's looking at the data would already end up somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a Schroeder's cat kind of thing.
Got it, right. You know, there's a question about, you know, are there any accident or even fatality, you know, coming out of this practice? I don't think there are, right?
No. So I've had we've had swelling. Mm-hmm. So one guy was a Muay Thai fighter, and I told him to kind of go easy on this for the next week or so. And I told him to just wear thick gloves. It's pretty easy. But you know, some do bare knuckle fighting, and they only have like thin band-aids on instead of big gloves. Well, he did the earlier, so he had like a bunch of really hard hitting on it, like the first day after. So it moved slightly and started irritating on a nerve. So we had to remove it and replace it, but it didn't break. So small things like that. Of course, whenever you break the skin, whenever you break the surface of the skin, you're susceptible to bacteria, virus, fungi, parasites. So it's just like any wound. Like don't put sharp, rusty objects into the wound, and you'll be safe. It heals up in a couple of days. So it's a very minute. If you look at this procedure, it's done with surgical razor sharp surgical tools, and so it leaves like pristine healing surfaces. So it heals very fast. It's very safe. So unless you go to someone that has no idea of cross contamination and how to perform an aseptic procedure, there's literally no risk. It's way more risky piercing your ears at a mall or a supermarket.
So
1,000 times.
yeah, it has to be under the medical personnel supervision, or
not in Sweden. So I'd say it's local or national differences in legislation, regulation.
Yeah.
So anyone following regulation when it comes to and what type of place do they have, like a tattoo shop, if they have a sterile room, if they know a septic procedure. In Sweden, a piercer could actually perform it. Well, obviously, I'm an old piercer myself, but we're targeting nurses and people with a medical background just to have the initial trust level be that much higher, because okay, maybe 3, 4, 5% of the population wouldn't mind going to a piercing shop if it's a high level high level piercing shop, but definitely 99% of the population would feel more safer if it's a white gown, actual nurse with a reception, etc. So I mean, just due to the fact of human psychology being when a piercer might have done 50,000 piercing more than a nurse, they're more prone to trust a nurse. But so anyone doing it would definitely be tutored and trained by Biohacks Academy before they were ever allowed to do anything. The first 100 people that would ever be allowed to perform Biohacks implants would have made their first implant on me.
I see.
It'd be painful, but
yeah. And another question is that how long will the implant last?
About 250,000 years.
Huh?
Yeah. So
double your lifetime.
Yeah. So the integrity of the memory can last for 25 to 50 years, not a problem. It's very, very rudimentary technology right now. See circuit. So the circuit itself doesn't have any moving parts or anything. So the logic in an NFC circuit it's very simple. It can go on for whatever, 25 years, 50 years. But I don't think there's no point in making anything that's going to last for more than 10 years, because the software requirements or the hardware requirements from more advanced software and more advanced blockchain technology is definitely always going to be there. So but anything we'd ever done lasts at a minimum of 10 years. The kind of the cylinder itself will last at least 250,000 years, or probably 2.5 million years.
And Another question is on the security, the, any prerequisites, I cannot say the patient, for the person who would like to have the implant. ขอสไลด์ตรงที่เป็น prerequisite ได้ไหมคะมันหายไปไหนละ okay. Health condition or any prerequisite before the operation, before the implant, and what to do in case of disabled people.
So if, like, we've always said 18, so you have to be Sip P.
Yeah, okay.
So you'd have to be 18
years old.
Yeah, 18 and of legal age to decide for yourself. But if there comes to disabled, if you're let's say you're 13 or 12 or 13, whatever, you have a slight Parkinson or a cerebral palsy, I wouldn't care if you're in a position where you can tell me, or you can communicate yourself that, can I please have this because this would make my life so much easier. I don't care about age. Like if it will help, if you can't hold keys, if you can't put a key in a locker, if you can't, if you're disabled to the extent that you can't use your own electric wheelchair, whatever, like, I don't care about age. But it shouldn't, if you're not in that position, it should be a choice made when you're of psychological maturity of an adult. Because even if it's semi-permanent, it's under your skin, it's going to be there, and unless you understand what it does, what adverse effects it might have, and especially before there is regulation and legislation on ownership of identity and data, 18 will most likely always be the age. 15 maybe with parental consent, mutual consent. But there's also the thing, kind of, what is it going to be used for? Is it going to be taken advantage of? Who is getting it? Is it heavily incentivized by any one party? Or so the kind of the ethical dynamics around age, where, who, which, what is definitely something I reach out to a lot of people about, and kind of a lighthouse and brain pool of it. Discuss it as much as humanly possible, because I'm only one person, and there's people that have discussed this type of dilemmas and the ethical conundrums and the ethical philosophies even of future technology, what it holds, what it might hold, and what we need to prepare for, and how we need to uphold a good ethical standard. I've always just promoted open source. We're definitely going to open source. Even if we patent a bunch of stuff, we're always going to white paper and make sure that people know what it is, how, why, when, etc. Because if it's owned and dictated by the public, it's never ever going to be a entity or a private interest or a certain interest that can control it.
ขอดูสไลด์แรกนิดนึงได้ไหมมีคำถามอะไรที่ยังไม่ได้ถาม I'm going just scanning the question. ต่อไปอีกสไลด์หนึ่ง Oh, okay. The question about the cost. How much does it cost, for implanting this kind of bio device at the moment?
Well, we try and follow the kind of, if you follow the Big Mac index, it's 150 euros in Sweden. So wherever we go, we'd kind of, just follow Big Mac index, or follow the medium income. So Europe in essence, 100 to 150 euros.
Does it need any maintenance? You just implant it and then it will go on forever. You said that like maybe 200 years after that. Any maintenance?
No, not really.
Not at all.
I mean, you have to basically, if any, you'd have to update the app, the software every now and then. But other than that, like don't hit it with hammers and don't, I don't know, like it's just sits there and you don't even notice it. Um, you notice, I mean, your life becomes a bit cooler and easier. You open doors, you pay for stuff, you do. It's kind of neat because once you've used it, you can even do it. If you get an NFC Band-Aid, like a sticker with NFC in it, you put your car key there, you put your house key, you put your office key, you put your gym key, you put your LinkedIn profile, your digital business card, you put your this and that, you know, and you use it for 3 days. If you use it for 3 days and then you lose the sticker, you're gonna want to get an implant. Because it changes you on a cognitive level. Because one, you're not gonna go look for your wallet. You're not gonna go look for your keys. You're not gonna go look for your card in the other bag or this and that. You're not gonna forget anything. It's just there. Convenience on a whole new level and efficiency, and it's just streamlined. It's extremely awesome. But there's this huge and big speed bump, which is we don't, at this point, you own only the internet of you. So that is what you dictate, because it could be your wine cellar, it could be your, you know, your safe, the way you log into your computer or open your phone, or, you know, the house door, the locker, your gym, whatever. But it's always going to be confined to the internet of you. As soon as you start using commercial services, you're always going to be, you know, it's going to be their terms, you know. So whoever's providing the service is also dictating the terms and conditions, because if you don't agree, you don't get to use their service. So everything that's free, you're kind of what they're selling. So you're the product and everything that's free. So to change that, I mean, it is awesome to use it in an internet of me, but I want to extend that to the circle outside of it, to the internet of us and the internet of everything, because that's kind of where the extreme value begins. And those are kind of the pain points that we need to, it's not a big threshold really, but it requires a lot of big people to kind of tweak their business models, or it's going to threaten a lot of very big people. And that's usually not the healthiest thing to do for any business.
How many have
some kind of symbiosis?
Yeah, right. How many, you know, have you implanted on the device, you know, already? I mean,
so I've done about around 6,000 persons, around 6,000 people personally. Obviously with a drastic decline for the last 2 years. But 6,000 people, and last year we were aiming for 25,000 people. Obviously COVID came, and rest is history, but I don't see it being a problem to come up to a couple 100,000 in you know 1-2 years.
Any
interest
customer satisfaction feedback, something like that?
What's that?
Satisfaction rate, in short.
Oh, I dare say like 95%.
Really? That's
the most common feedback I guess get is why aren't there more services allowing this? Because people want it to be used more commercially, commercial retail, everything that has NFC. I mean, the subway has NFC, but you know, they have proprietary systems that are, you know, they're put in after being, what's the word? Upphandling. Can get a help by my Swedish counterparty here. Anyway, like there's procurement, so public procurement, or in that kind of because they want to lock in that's their little spot, so they own that, and they're not really prone to allowing other actors into their little safe haven because they're going to make money from that a couple of years. Then someone else is probably going to take over because they have something better. But making everything open source and allowing for different types of technology to always communicate over the same platform and over the same protocol is basically all we can do right now, because that enables anyone to integrate and to start using and to kind of spreading the love.
So technology is advancing every day. So I believe that the not the early adopter, but those who will try this implant, in the later year will get a better technology as well, right?
I mean, definitely. I mean, I could basically, we have designs that are far superior to what's there today, but there's the user base isn't large enough for that big of an investment.
I see. Okay.
So it's basically all about creating the strategic partnerships now and doing it kind of reverse. We want the financial backing kind of before we have the user base, because when we make it, we know that people will use it, or not people, but in healthcare and in different niched sectors. There's definitely a huge demand for technology like this, but there needs to be a consortium, well honed and big enough to kind of provide that demand. It's kind of a reverse.
Yes.
And I mean, I can pack a very, very small area with nano sensors and give it a rather unique biofeed, or outstream of data, but it wouldn't serve the purpose, if the receiver wasn't there already. So it's kind of creating need to create a lot of back end, and have that infrastructure in place, and also the usability, and the benefits of it before you kind of give it to someone. So it's like knowing what the internet would do, but then kind of educating people on how to use the internet first before releasing the internet, or kind of before people got social media, they would have to get educated first, and then you would let them in. Right. So it's almost like that.
We are running out of time, but I have my own personal question. Back to the day you begin with this project. What inspired you, to start this this venture, or what's the trigger point? You were the body piercer before. What triggered you to into this into becoming the biotech entrepreneur?
The possibility,
yes.
Yeah, I mean, what if this works? What if, like, if this becomes what I think it can, or what I see it becoming, there's I can't not do it. And I struggled, like, basically day and night, 7 days a week, 14, 16, 18 hours per day for 7 years. And I was exactly at that point where we're getting big investors and everything was going to go great. And then came COVID. But, that has only, that has only given an entirely new set of networks, which is, is going to implement the work I've done in several, different manners. And, whatever you do, just try.
Yeah.
Because startups, I still feel like a startup, even though I've gotten, global recognition. We've done whatever, some 10,000 articles, and I still feel like a startup. And I guess if you don't like act like a startup, I don't think you don't stay on the move, because when you're not a startup, you don't just keep going, keep climbing, keep never be satisfied.
Yes.
And that goes for everything, basically. But if you feel you should do it, you should probably do it. What's the worst thing that can happen?
Right.
Not trying is not trying. I'd say that kind of the worst thing.
Yeah, I like it very much when you mention possibility and keep moving. That's the mindset of a startup, and those who's going to be a successful one too. I think that's all the time that we have with you today, and I believe we should have a lot more to talk to you. So I'm looking forward very much to
absolutely
having you back with us again, either in person or maybe at the moment online, to further inspire the entrepreneur here in Thailand, and all those who would like to maybe try a hand on the becoming a technology by entrepreneur, something like that, like you yourself, especially in the area of biotechnology.
Just hit me up. I'll do what I can.
Yeah, I'm sure that we'll have more conversation in the future. It's very interesting indeed. For today, I'll have to again express my sincere appreciation towards your participation and your talk today. It's very enlightening. Actually, it's very enlightening and also very inspiring as well. We learned a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah,
happy to be here.
Very much for having you back with us again sometime soon.
Likewise.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jowan. Have a nice day.
You too.
You too. Bye. Thank you.
We have now come to the end of TMA TopTalk, Future of Human Digitization and the Reality of Implanted Biodevices. And I would like to express our appreciation to Bangkok Bank Public Company Limited as our generous sponsor for great support. And before we go, I would like to seek your cooperation in completing the evaluation form by scanning the QR code on the screen. Your feedback is essential to us as we can continue to improve our programs and success to you. Finally, TMA would like to thank all of you for joining us today. We also look forward to seeing you again at TMA's upcoming events by checking out at TMA's Facebook and website, tma.or.th. Once again, thank you very much and have a good night. ขอบคุณค่ะ